Diabetes ka ba? Bigyan mo ko ng gamot sa urgin. Mamaya. Ay, wala ka ng mask. May mask ka pa sa sasakyan?
Madami akong mask doon. Yung kulay blue tsaka yung puti.
Saan ba yung sinasabi ni tita mo magpapa-schedule ka? Layo? Saan?
Sa LA yata yun eh. Lagay doon. LA County.
Kailan mo pupuntahan?
Tapos ko yung ginagawa ko doon. Kasi yung ginawa ko doon eh, nagdilit. Tumawag nga si Ate Lili. Kaya ginabi ko eh. Pumunta muna ako ulit doon.
Nagawa mo?
Hindi, kailangan baklasing po lahat.
Kung diyan ka magtanong sa Walgreen, kaya na lang. Meron daw sa Walgreen, saka sa CBS ba yun?
Ba't tumigil?
Ha? Yung narto nga, naglakad nga lang daw sila mag-iina. Sa ano ba yun sila? Eh, pagpunta doon, binakunahan agad sila. Sabot kay kanina eh, doon sa may kanina.
Praise God. Thank you, excellent musicians of the Lord. God bless you. Thank you for leading us in worship. Hello, family. Hello, Heart of Worship. Hello, everyone. Hello, our FB family there worshiping with us today. God bless you all. And I know God has something great for all of us, and that's a wonderful plan. Amen. It's really wonderful to worship the Lord, and I'm excited to worship the Lord. Amen. Imagine, worshiping the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the powerful God who created the world. Amen. In Christ Jesus, through Him we are forgiven of our sins. Amen. God is good. And we want to greet everyone celebrating the birthday. I know Sister Lynn Pulido is coming over, celebrating her birthday. Celebrating her birthday for a whole week. She said it's coming today because I know she's just around there, somewhere just late. so. David, but our hearts are with you, so. And those who are sick that are here right now, thank you, Lord, that your presence.
Make a list of them. Life will give you some pretty big challenges, but unless you practice on the small ones and master those, you don't have a chance on the major ones. A man strides out of his house to go straighten out the corporation, and he has not yet straightened out his garage. Who's he kidding? So, work on all the disciplines, small as well as large, that will improve the quality of your life. And here is an important thought. Everything affects everything else. Every lack of discipline affects every other discipline. Mistakenly, the man says, "This is the only area I failed." It's obvious that's not true. Every failure, no matter how small, affects the rest of your performance. Now here is the positive side. Every new discipline affects every other discipline. Every new thing you try affects the rest of your performance. Isn't that exciting? So get started on every small discipline you can think of. You can't believe what it will do for your self-confidence. Remember, the greatest deterrent to success is lack of self-confidence. and lack of self-confidence comes from not doing what you could do. Next comes self-motivation. Really, that's the only kind of motivation there is. I was on a lecture tour in Australia not long ago, and the press interviewed me. They asked, "Mr. Rohn, are you one of those American motivators?" I said, "No, I'm a businessman. I can share my ideas and my experiences, but people have got to motivate themselves." I've discovered that you can't change people. They can change themselves, but you can't change them. Lord knows I've tried. I had a super group of salespeople back in those early days. I said, "I'm going to make them successful if it kills me." Guess what? It almost did. It can't be done. Good people are found, not changed. If you want good people, you have to find them. That's the best answer I can give you. If you want motivated people, you have to find them, not motivate them. The first rule of management is this: don't send your ducks to eagle school. Why? Because it won't work. I've tried it all. I picked up a magazine not long ago in New York that had a full-page ad in it for a hotel chain. The first line of the ad was, "We do not teach our people to be nice." Now, that got my attention. The second line said, "We simply hire nice people." I thought, what a clever shortcut. Motivation is a mystery. Why are some people motivated and some are not? Why does one salesperson see his first prospect at 7 in the morning while another sees his first prospect at 11 in the morning? Why would one start at 7 and the other at 11? I don't know. I call it mysteries of the mind. I give lectures to 1,000 people at a time. One walks out and says, "I'm going to change my life." Someone else walks out with a yawn and says, "I've heard all this stuff before." Why is that? Why aren't they both affected to the same extent? I don't know. Mysteries of the mind. The wealthy man says to 1,000 people, "I read this book, and it started me on the road to wealth." Guess how many of the 1,000 go out and get the book? Answer: very few. Isn't that incredible? Why wouldn't everyone go get the book? Mysteries of the mind. To one person, you have to say, "You'd better slow down. You can't work that many hours, do that many things. Go, go, go. You're going to have a heart attack and die." And to another person, you have to say, "When are you ever going to get off the couch?" What is the difference? It's called mysteries of the mind. Why wouldn't everyone strive to be wealthy and happy? I don't know. Mysteries of the mind. So, be self-motivated. Don't give that job away to someone else. The guy says, "Boy, if someone will just come by and turn me on." Hey, what if he doesn't show up? You've got to have a better plan for your life. You've got to have discipline. Doing your best. I've got a good question for you. Is the best you can do all you can do? Strangely enough, the answer is no. Imagine dropping to the floor right now and doing as many push-ups as you possibly can. And let's say for some reason you haven't been doing any push-ups lately, so the best you can do is 5. But is 5 all you can ever do? The answer is no. If you rest a little, you can do 5 more. And if you rest a little more, you can do 5 more. How did we get from 5 to 15? It's a miracle. If you continue that pattern, is it possible to get up to 50 push-ups? Of course. How do you go from 5 to 50? It's a miracle. So how do you get that miracle going? It's all a matter of discipline, and it begins with one simple step: doing what you can. Once you have done that, you can keep working to bring your best to a higher level. Each time you complete an activity and take a rest, you're preparing yourself for an even greater accomplishment. But here is a note of caution. Don't rest too long. Why? Because the weeds can take over the garden. You've probably noticed that kids have that figured out. Here's how they keep things moving. They take rest as a necessity, not an objective. The objective of life is not to rest. The objective of life is to act, to think of more disciplines. Think of more ways and means to use your own wisdom, your own philosophy. Use your own attitude, your own faith, your own courage, your own commitment, your own desires, your own excitement. Invest yourself in disciplines so that your talents are not wasted. The smallest of disciplines can thereby transform your life. Join that small percentage of truly disciplined people and discover what your best truly is. Reaping a multiple reward. For every disciplined effort, there are multiple rewards. That's one of life's great arrangements. In fact, it's an extension of that biblical law that says that if you sow well, you will reap well. Here's a unique part of the law of sowing and reaping. Not only does it suggest that we'll all reap what we've sown, it also suggests that we'll reap much more. Life is full of laws that both govern and explain behaviors, but this may well be the major law we need to understand. For every disciplined effort, there are multiple rewards. What a concept! If you render unique service, your reward will be multiplied. If you're fair and honest and patient with others, your reward will be multiplied. If you give more than you expect to receive, your reward is more than you expect. But remember, the key word here, as you might well imagine, is discipline. Everything of value requires care, attention, and discipline. Children require discipline. They must have a structure built for them. They must have boundaries to work within so they feel secure and comfortable to explore and grow. They must learn to recognize what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable. Children require constant and consistent discipline. Otherwise, they'll be confused as to how they're supposed to behave. Likewise, our thoughts require discipline. We must consistently determine our inner boundaries, and our codes of conduct, or our thoughts, will be confused. And if our thoughts are confused, we will become hopelessly lost in the maze of life. Confused thoughts produce confused results. Remember the law? For every disciplined effort, there are multiple rewards. Learn the discipline of writing a card or a letter to a friend. Learn the discipline of paying your bills on time, arriving to appointments on time, or using your time more effectively. Learn the discipline of paying attention, or paying your taxes, or paying yourself. Learn the discipline of having regular meetings with your associates, or your spouse, or your child, or your parent. Learn the discipline of learning all you can learn, of teaching all you can teach, of reading all you can read. For each discipline, multiple rewards. For each book, new knowledge. For each success, new ambition. For each challenge, new understanding. For each failure, new determination. Life is like that. Even the bad experiences of life provide their own special contribution. But a word of caution here for those who neglect the need for care and attention to life's disciplines. Everything has its price. Everything affects everything else. Neglect discipline, and there will be a price to pay. All things of value can be taken for granted with the passing of time. That's what we call the law of familiarity. Without the discipline of paying constant daily attention, we take things for granted. Be serious. Life's not a practice session. If you're often inclined to toss your clothes onto the chair rather than hang them in the closet, be careful. It could suggest a lack of discipline. And remember, a lack of discipline in the small areas of life can cost you heavily in the more important areas of life. You cannot clean up your company until you learn the discipline of cleaning your own garage. You cannot be impatient with your children and be patient with your distributors or your employees. You cannot inspire others to sell more when that goal is inconsistent with your own conduct. You cannot admonish others to read good books when you don't have a library card. Think about your life at this moment. What areas need attention right now? Perhaps you've had a disagreement with someone you love or someone who loves you, and your anger won't allow you to speak to that person. Wouldn't this be an ideal time to examine your need for a new discipline? Perhaps you're on the brink of giving up, or starting over, or starting out. And the only missing ingredient to your incredible success story in the future is a new and self-imposed discipline that will make you try harder and work more intensely than you ever thought you could. The most valuable form of discipline is the one that you impose upon yourself. Don't wait for things to deteriorate so drastically that someone else must impose discipline into your life. Wouldn't that be tragic? How could you possibly explain the fact that someone else thought more of you than you thought of yourself? That they forced you to get up early and get out into the marketplace when you would have been content to let success go to someone else who cared more about themselves. Your life, my life, the life of each one of us is going to serve as either a warning or an example. A warning of the consequences of neglect, self-pity, lack of direction, and ambition, or an example of talent put to use, of discipline self-imposed, and of objectives clearly perceived and intensely pursued. Price versus promise. Our lives are affected by two major things. One is price, and the other is promise. And it's not that easy to pay the price if you can't see the promise. I think kids are having problems these days trying to pay the price because they can't see the promise. But nobody would mind paying the price if they could have a clear view of tomorrow, next week, or next month, or next year. If we had the assurance that everything were going to work out, do you think we would hesitate to pay? The answer is no. But everybody hesitates if the future isn't clear. So we've got two things to help our kids. Help them see the promise and help them pay the price. It is so much easier to pay the price if we can see the promise. My karate instructor said, "Mr. Rohn, you cannot believe the incredible feeling of walking down any city street unafraid." I said, "Let's get on with the classes." I was willing to sweat. I was willing to put myself through the paces to achieve that feeling. What would you do for an extraordinary promise? The most unbelievable things. Would you crack the books? Would you burn midnight oil? Would you engage in the extra thoughts and the extra disciplines if the promise were adequate? And the answer is, of course. But who wants to read? Who wants to burn the midnight oil? Who wants to put themselves through the paces if the promise isn't clear? Nobody. So do what it takes to discover what you truly want. Once you have seen and felt that ideal future, that promise of achievement, you will be ready and able to pay any price. The time to act. Engaging in genuine discipline requires that you develop the ability to take action. You don't need to be hasty if it isn't required, but you don't want to lose much time. Here's the time to act. when the idea is hot and the emotion is strong. Let's say you would like to build your library. If that is a strong desire for you, what you've got to do is get the first book, then get the second book. Take action as soon as possible, before the feeling passes and before the idea dims. If you don't, here's what happens. You fall prey to the law of diminishing intent. We intend to take action when the idea strikes us. We intend to do something when the emotion is high, but if we don't translate that intention into action fairly soon, the urgency starts to diminish. And a month from now, the passion is cold. A year from now, it can't be found. So take action. Set up a discipline when the emotions are high and the idea is strong, clear, and powerful. If somebody talks about good health and you're motivated by it, you need to get a book on nutrition. Get the book before the idea passes, before the emotion gets cold. Begin the process. Fall on the floor and do some push-ups. You've got to take action, otherwise the wisdom is wasted. The emotion soon passes unless you apply it to a disciplined activity. Discipline enables you to capture the emotion and the wisdom and translate them into action. The key is to increase your motivation by quickly setting up the disciplines. By doing so, you've started a whole new life process. Here's the greatest value of discipline. Self-worth, also known as self-esteem. Many people who are teaching self-esteem these days don't connect it to discipline. But once we sense the least lack of discipline within ourselves, it starts to erode our psyche. One of the great temptations is to just ease up a little bit. Instead of doing your best, you allow yourself to do just a little less than your best. Sure enough, you've started in the slightest way to decrease your sense of self-worth. There's a problem with even a little bit of neglect. Neglect starts as an infection. If you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease. And one neglect leads to another. Worst of all, when neglect starts, it diminishes our self-worth. Once this has happened, how can you regain your self-respect? All you have to do is start with the smallest discipline that corresponds to your own philosophy. Make the commitment. I will discipline myself to achieve my goals, so in the years ahead, I can celebrate my successes. Chapter 2. The Art of Personal Development. It's not what happens in the world that determines the major part of your future. What happens, happens to us all. The key is what you do about it. Whether on your way to achieving your goals or you've already gotten there, you'll be as happy as you make up your mind to be right now. Accepting responsibility is one of the highest forms of human maturity. A willingness to be accountable. To put yourself on the line is really the defining characteristic of adulthood. Once we understand and accept the truth, the promise of the future is freed from the shackles of deception. Starting the process of change. Of all the things Mr. Schoaf taught me, the biggest challenge for me was personal development. It was hard to give up my old blame list. I was so comfortable blaming my shortcomings on the government, my negative relatives, the company, unions, the economy, interest rates, prices, and every other imaginable circumstance. It was quite a transition for me to change from blaming everyone and everything else to taking responsibility for my life. But Mr. Schoaf made me realize the importance of making that transition with a simple statement. He said, "It's not what happens in the world that determines the major part of your future. What happens, happens to us all. The key is what you do about it. He encouraged me to start the process of change, to do something different in the following 90 days than I had done in the previous 90 days. And I'm asking you to do the same. Whether it's picking up a book, starting a new health discipline, improving your relationship with your family, whatever it is, however small the action, you need to start the process. Mr. Schoaf then gave me another secret to success when he said, "All that you have at the moment, Mr. Rohn, you've attracted by the person you are." Once I began to understand this principle, it explained so much. Mr. Schoaf continued, "Mr. Rohn, you've only got pennies in your pocket. You've got nothing in the bank. The creditors are calling and you're behind on your promises. Here's how that occurred. Misfortune has taken place because of the kind of person you are." I said, "Well, how can I change all that?" He answered, "If you will change yourself, everything else will change for you. You don't have to change what's outside. All you've got to change is what's inside. To have more, you simply have to become more." And then he said, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish that you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Start making these personal changes and it will all change for you." He was absolutely right. Preparing yourself mentally. Picture for a moment a little wildebeest in Africa. Do you know how much time it has after birth to learn how to run with the pack so it's not eaten by the lions? A few minutes. As soon as the little wildebeest is born, it tries to stand up. When it falls down, its mother nudges it and gets it to stand back up. Then it falls back down. Finally, on little shaky legs, it tries to nurse. The mother pushes it away. She moves so it can't nurse. Why? She's sending a message. You can't nurse now. You've got to develop some strength, or the lions will get you. You've got to get these legs strong. We don't have much time. How long does this process take for a human baby? As a parent of grown children, I'm still not sure. It's unbelievable the amount of time it takes for personal development, for spiritual development, for physical development. But there's something else that takes time, and that's your mental development, feeding the mind. Some people read so infrequently that they've got rickets of the mind. They couldn't give you a good argument as to their own personal beliefs. Here's one of the challenges we have to face as parents: getting our kids ready to debate today's major life issues. They've got to develop their own well-informed opinions. You can help them do just that, but only if you first commit to doing it yourself. And here's the next challenge. You've got to be able to defend your opinions. If you can't defend your virtues, and if you can't defend your values, you'll fall prey to philosophies that are not in your best interest. We've got to help our kids. They need to be well informed about the major life issues, the political issues, the social issues, the religious issues, the spiritual issues, and the economic issues. You've got to get yourself and your kids ready for the great challenge of today, to develop your philosophy and defend your virtues and your values. The principles of self-making. When most people think of Ben Franklin, they remember the kite and the lightning bolt and the discovery of electricity. What a lot of people may not know is that Ben Franklin was the first writers to address self-making. When Franklin started Poor Richard's Almanac in 1732, he used the blank spaces between the crop data and the weather information to insert clever bits of moral and practical advice. I'm sure you've heard the saying, "Fish and company start to stink in 3 days." That was one of hundreds of Ben Franklin's comments on life. Another was, Diligence is the mother of good luck. You know, it's amazing how hardworking, intelligent people have all the luck. We sometimes hear of a brand new musical group, an overnight success. They must have been in the right place at the right time, knew the right people, had a friend help them out. But if you've ever watched an interview with some of these folks, you'll probably hear that their overnight success actually took several years. Diligence is the mother of good luck. In addition to those witticisms, Ben Franklin gave us 3 principles of success that have withstood the test of time. Number 1, happiness doesn't come from big pieces of great success, but from small daily achievements. What Mr. Franklin is saying is that we must be happy with what we've got when we're in pursuit of what we really want. Too often we say, "Oh, I'll be happy when I just get that promotion. I'll be happy when I just land that contract. I'll be happy when I just have more money. I'll be happy when I just what?" You won't be any happier when you reach your goals than you are right now. It just doesn't work that way. Abraham Lincoln said it best. He said, "You'll be as happy as you make up your mind to be." Whether you're on your way or you've already gotten there, you'll be as happy as you make up your mind to be right now. Being happy on the way doesn't mean you can't aim for great things. After all, look at everything Franklin accomplished in his lifetime. It means that big achievements come one small step at a time. It means that you've got to enjoy the journey. It means that you must enjoy and take pride in your little accomplishments. It means celebrating who you are becoming in pursuit of a larger goal. And it means doing so every single day. Ben Franklin's second principle was, life is not rigid. Within each of us lies the power to mold ourselves and our environment. It is up to each of us to begin this molding process with a final product in mind, and it is within your power to work on your goals regularly. By using your mind and your abilities, you'll soon see how much power you have to achieve your goals. It takes little steps to build up to success. Principle number 3. Success is a pleasure. If what you are doing today isn't satisfying or gratifying, guess what? You're really not successful. If you are not fulfilled with what you are doing today, you cannot possibly be successful. It doesn't matter how many worldly possessions you own, how many cars, how many toys, how much money. If you are not happy with your life as it is, you cannot be successful. I know that success is a relative term. It means different things to different people. To a school kid, success may mean a star on his latest test. To a homemaker, it probably means having a well-run household and a wonderful family. To a business person, it's most likely the thrill of closing a major contract, the pride in accepting a performance bonus, or being named the top producing salesperson. But the one testimonial you will hear from all successful people is that they are happy with who they are and what they are doing. They are content, satisfied. Success is a pleasure. What have you done today that makes this day successful? Think about it. Write it down. If at the end of each day you can jot down the things that have made it a good day, you will soon see patterns forming. This really is a good habit to get into. When you can see a pattern of pleasure, you'll know you're on the road to success. So take note of Mr. Franklin's 3 principles of success. Number 1, big achievements come one step at a time, one day at a time. Number 2, you have the power to mold your life. You can make it whatever you want. You can shape it and reshape it. And number 3, success is measured through pleasure. This is the key principle. You've got to be happy along the way. You've got to learn to give yourself a pat on the back. You need to tell yourself, I'm proud of me today. You've got to learn to enjoy the process. Accepting responsibility. During the years when professional basketball was just beginning to become really popular, Bill Russell, who played center for the Boston Celtics, was one of the greatest players in the professional leagues. He was especially known for his rebounding and his defensive skills. But like a lot of very tall centers, Russell was never much of a free throw shooter. In fact, his free throw percentage was quite a bit below average. But this low percentage didn't really give a clear picture of Russell's ability as an athlete, and in one game he gave a very convincing performance. It was the final game of a championship series between the Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. With about 12 seconds left to play, the Lakers were behind by 1 point, and the Celtics had the ball. It was obvious that the Lakers would have to foul one of the Boston players in order to get the ball back, and they chose to foul Bill Russell. This was a perfectly logical choice, since statistically, Russell was the worst free throw shooter on the court. If he missed the shot, the Lakers would probably get the ball back, and they'd still have enough time to try to win the game. But if Russell made his first free throw, the Lakers' chances would be seriously diminished, and if he made both shots, the game would essentially be over. Bill Russell had a very peculiar style of shooting free throws. Today, no self-respecting basketball player anywhere in America would attempt to shoot this way. Aside from the question of whether it was an effective way to shoot a basket, it just looked too ridiculous. Whenever he had to shoot a free throw, the 6'11" Russell would start off holding the ball in both hands, waist high. Then he'd squat down, and as he straightened up, he'd let go of the ball. It looked like he was trying to throw a bucket of dirt over a wall. But regardless of how he looked, as soon as Russell was fouled, he knew the Celtics were going to win the game. He was absolutely certain of it, because in a situation like that, statistics and percentages meant nothing. There was a much more important factor at work, something that no one has yet found a way to express in numbers and decimal points. Simply put, Bill Russell was a player who wanted to take responsibility for the success or failure of his team. He had no reason for excuses, no possibility of blaming anybody else if the game was lost. No second guessing. Russell wanted the ball in his own hands and nobody else's. Even if he'd missed every free throw he'd ever shot in his life, he knew he was going to make this one. And that is exactly what happened. That is what virtually always happens when a man or woman eagerly and confidently accepts responsibility. I've always felt that accepting responsibility is one of the highest forms of human maturity. A willingness to be accountable, to put yourself on the line, is really the defining characteristic of adulthood. Anyone who has raised children knows how true this is. Just look at a baby during the first few years of life. Every gesture, every facial expression, every tentative word has one message for the baby's parents. The message is, I am totally dependent on you. I can't do anything for myself, and even if I try, I can't be held responsible for the consequences. After all, I'm just a baby. 10 or 12 years later, of course, as the boy or girl enters adolescence, the message to parents will be very different. It will sound something like this. Why don't you just leave me alone? I want to be totally independent. I don't want to do anything but think about myself. I certainly don't want to accept any responsibility for anything beyond my own well-defined needs and desires. It's only when we're at last grown up that the first two messages, I am totally dependent on you, and I am totally independent of you, finally turn into, you can depend on me, which is the truly adult outlook. Strange as it may seem, of course, there are people in their 30s and 40s who are still acting like adolescents. And there are even people in their 40s and 50s who are still acting like babies as far as their attitude toward responsibility is concerned. These kinds of people can be hard to have around, especially if you have to work with them. But the large number of people who shirk responsibility can also provide opportunities for you. If you decide to be one of the few who embraces responsibility, you can lead, and you will deserve to lead. Churchill said, "Responsibility is the price of greatness." And in my opinion, it's really a rather small price to pay. Increasing your value to the marketplace. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. That is a simple statement of economics. We don't get paid for the number of hours we work. We get paid for value. Since that's true, is it possible to become twice as valuable and make twice as much money in the same amount of time? The answer is, of course. Could you become 3 times more valuable than you are right now and make 3 times as much money in the same time? The answer is, of course. Could you become 20 times more valuable than you are right now to the marketplace and make 20 times as much money in the same time? The answer is, of course. Becoming successful in America is like climbing a ladder. This ladder starts at minimum wage and reaches all the way to $200 million a year and more. Why would the marketplace pay someone only minimum wage? The answer is, he or she is not very valuable to the marketplace. That person might be a valuable sibling, a valuable member of the family, a valuable member of the church, or a valuable citizen of the country. Of course, he or she is valuable in the sight of God. We're all of equal value in the sight of God. But if you're not very valuable to the marketplace, you won't earn much money. Why would the marketplace pay someone $50 an hour? The answer is, evidently, he or she must be that valuable to the marketplace. Why would the marketplace pay someone $500 an hour? Evidently, he or she must be that valuable. Why would a company pay one person $200 million for a year's work? Evidently, this person must be very valuable. Would any company pay one person $200 million? The answer is yes. If that person helped a company make $4 billion, they would be more than happy to give him or her $200 million a year. You can learn to increase your value to the marketplace. Mr. Schoaf taught me how to climb this ladder, and here's what he said. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That bit of economic philosophy changed my life. Up until the age of 25, I worked hard on my job and made a living. Starting at age 25, I worked hard on myself, and I made a fortune. And I learned a valuable lesson. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract because of the person you become. What you pursue usually eludes you like the butterfly you can't quite catch. But if you want to be successful, you must attract success by developing the skills and the appropriate mindset. What you learn about the marketplace and its goods and services, that's what's valuable. The key to getting paid very well in the marketplace is to develop very valuable skills. The promise of the future. Let me tell you what I think messes up the mind the most. Doing less than you can. It causes all kinds of psychic damage. Being less than you can be, trying less than you can try, somehow damages your mind, your self-image. Here's what I've discovered. The minute you turn this cycle around and start motivating yourself, you'll see immediate rewards. Maybe not monetary ones, not yet, but it's how you feel about yourself that's of the greatest value. Discover all you can do. See how much you can earn, how much you can share, how much you can start, how much you can finish, how far you can reach, and how far you can extend your influence. Some people out there would have us believe that positive affirmation is more important than activity. Instead of doing something constructive to change their lives, they would have us repeating slogans and canned affirmations like, "Every day and in every way, I'm getting better and better." Well, improving our lives doesn't just happen with wishful thinking. Getting better and better only happens with the discipline of doing better and better. Discipline is the requirement for progress. And affirmations without discipline are, in reality, delusions. Affirmations can be effective as long as you remember two very important rules. Number one, you should never allow affirmation to replace action. Feeling better is no substitute for doing better. And number two, whatever you choose to affirm must be the truth. If the truth happens to be that you're broke, the best affirmation would be to simply say, "I'm broke." Face it, accept it, be responsible for it, and change it. By admitting that you're broke, by saying it out loud, you'll probably be disgusted enough to start thinking about how to change the situation. Anyone saying, "I'm broke," with any conviction will most likely be motivated to take action. Confronting harsh realities has an incredible confronting the truth and then disciplining yourself instead of failing to take responsibility inevitably leads to positive change. Reality is always the best beginning. You see, within reality lies the possibility to create your own personal miracle. And the power of faith starts with reality. If you can bring yourself to state the truth about a situation, then, as the saying goes, the truth will set you free. Here's another old saying: faith isn't faith unless it's all you're holding on to. If your life and your circumstances have resulted in a situation that is ugly, call it ugly. If you've lost it all, admit that you've lost it all. Be responsible for it. And if faith is all you've got left, use it. Create your own personal miracle. Once you understand and accept the truth, the promise of the future is freed from the shackles of deception. Once you accept the truth, the promise of the future will pull you forward. Maintaining the physical. Ancient scripture says, "Treat your body like a temple." That is excellent advice. Treat your body like a temple, like something you'd take extremely good care of. Not a woodshed, a temple. And here's why. The mind and the body work together. You've got to have both functioning well. Here's one of the best ways I've come to look at the connection between the two. Your body needs to be a good support system for the mind and the spirit. Your body must support you with the strength, energy, power, and vitality to take you wherever you want to go. Here's a major part of success: vitality. Some people don't do well simply because they don't feel well. Feeling well is a personal responsibility. You need to take care of the temple. Cherish it. Ancient scripture says, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." That's a sad combination. It's hard to think of a much more pitiful combination than a willing spirit and a weak body. You wake up in the morning and the mind says, "Let's go get him." And the body says, "I can't even get out of bed." So you have a conversation with yourself and the mind says, "That's the last time you're going to fail me. Don't give me the excuse that you can't get out of bed. I'll drive you to your knees to do push-ups until you're exhausted. I've got these plans for fortune and enterprise, and there's one thing that I'm going to demand: a strong, unbelievably powerful support system. And from now on, I'm going to have a support system that'll take me wherever I want to go. It will support me with power, vitality, strength, and zest. Anything less than that, I will not settle for." I'm telling you, it's so important to take care of your physical self. Be conscious of your support system. Be conscious of yourself. But don't be self-conscious. Don't work on it too much. You don't have to spend 6 hours a day to have a good support system. 30 minutes to an hour a day, and you can have a strong, healthy body. What is adequate exercise? You can do just a few simple things. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. When you're looking for a parking space, don't look for one that's right by the front door. Park a block away and get in a little bit of exercise. Pick the exercise program that'll work for you. One that you'll perform, one that won't bore you or hurt you. If you don't like to jog, if your joints can't handle it, go for a walk. If you don't like to walk, take up swimming half a mile a few times a week. If you don't like exercise that seems like exercise, get into a sport like tennis, racquetball, basketball, or softball. You don't have to do too much, just enough to give your body a good workout. Here's what else happens when you participate in a regular exercise program. You just plain feel better in both body and mind. It's kind of a paradox, but the more physical activity you do, the less sleep you need, and the better your mind works. We've all heard of the runner's high. Well, it's not just a myth. 20 to 30 minutes of sustained activity starts releasing endorphins into your bloodstream, and endorphins are your body's natural version of morphine. No wonder they call it a runner's high. Take care of your physical health so you can achieve your goals. You will then have the muscle, strength, and vitality to take you wherever you want to go and accomplish whatever you want. Develop a good exercise program and you can make all your dreams come true. Taking care of the temple. My mother studied health and lived to pass what she learned along to me, my father, my children, and my grandchildren. What a legacy that was. Learning to take care of yourself is one of the most important lessons in life. Some people don't do well because they don't feel well. They've got the gifts, they've got the skills, maybe they just haven't taken care of themselves. They don't have the vitality. If you want to avoid that unhappy situation, you need to take care of yourself. I know a man who raises racehorses. He's so careful how he feeds his horses that they get everything they could possibly need. And because of that extreme care, these are magnificent animals. They can run like the wind. But you ought to see this guy. After 10 steps up a flight of stairs, he's out of breath. His horses can run like the wind, and he can hardly make it up the steps. The guy takes care of his animals better than he takes care of himself. But you want that said about you? All it takes is a few minutes a day. A small study of exercise and nutrition, a little more focus, and you can have the good health that you deserve. Chapter 3. Setting compelling goals. Go where the expectations are so strong that they provoke you, push you, urgently insist that you not remain in one place. That way, you will grow and change. Achievement depends on effective goal setting and monitoring in the same way that a successful drive to the grocery store depends on knowing when to apply the brakes and step on the gas pedal. Ambitious people know that everything they do and every discipline they adhere to forms the links in the chain of events that will lead them to their final destination. Knowing where you're going. Goals are important for a genuinely success-oriented person. Without them, you're just playing around. The difference between a goal-directed individual and someone without goals is like the difference between a Wimbledon champion and a kid batting a tennis ball around on a court with no net, no opponent to bring out the best in him, and no way of keeping score. Despite everything that's written about the importance of goal setting, very few people actually put it into practice. It's always amazed me the way the average person devotes more thought and effort to planning his or her 2-week vacation than to planning his life. Goals represent challenge in its most positive form. Leaders have their personal goals, as well as those of the organization, clearly in focus. In fact, one of the principal responsibilities of leadership is defining goals for the vast majority of people who aren't able to do it for themselves. Over the years, I've developed some ideas about effective goal setting, and I'd like to share those with you. I also want to point out some traps of goal-directed behavior that aren't usually talked about, but certainly ought to be. When I was a kid, I used to dream what it would be like to buy a ticket on a train and just go someplace. I didn't really think about where I'd be going or how long it would take to get there. I just loved the idea of getting on the train and letting it take me someplace. I guess there's still something appealing about that idea, but it's not really the way you should live your life as a mature human being. When you grow up, you buy a ticket on a train or a plane because you want to go someplace and you know exactly where you're going. You may have to change planes in a different city, your flight may be canceled, or you may have to switch to another flight. You may not feel like talking to the person seated next to you, but you will persist. You know where you're headed, and you're quite determined to get there. That's goal-directed behavior in its simplest form. There are short-term goals and long-term goals. Sometimes you're flying across the country, other times you're just walking down to the corner grocery store. Long-term goals are the equivalent of a major journey. When you reach the point where you've achieved your long-term goals, your life will be fundamentally changed, and the process of getting to that point will have transformed you into a stronger, wiser, and higher-performing person. How can you identify your long-term goals? On a sheet of paper or in a notebook, write these 5 headings. 1. What do I want to do? 2. Who do I want to be? 3. What do I want to see? 4. What do I want to have? 5. Where do I want to go? Under each of these categories, write down several possible long-term goals. Be very relaxed about this. Just allow your mind to flow and come up with 3 to 6 ideas for each category. Don't worry about a lot of details at this point, and don't spend too much time describing a particular goal. For example, refer to category 1. Suppose you want to write a book about the history of your family going back to the arrival of your great-grandparents in the United States. Just quickly jot down family history. Then it occurs to you that you've always wanted to see pyramids in Egypt. So you write pyramids. Keep writing down ideas as long as the list of categories continues to inspire you. You'll probably be surprised at some of the things that turn up. You may have kept a great many desires and aspirations hidden in the back of your mind, but the opportunity to write them down will move them to the forefront of your consciousness. That's one of the benefits of this technique. When you're satisfied with your list of long-term goals, read through the list once again. Then, beside each item, write the number of years that you believe it will take you to achieve that particular goal. It's best to round off the numbers into 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10-year time frames. For example, you may estimate that it will take you 10 years to research and write the book on your family history, but you'll need only 5 years to reach a position where you can take a trip to the pyramids. Create a time frame like this for every one of your long-term goals. When you're finished entering your time frames, there should be a fairly balanced for all your goals. If there are many 1- and 3-year objectives, but only a few in the 10-year category, maybe you need to think more about what you really want your life to add up to. What kind of life you really want to build over the long run. But if there's a preponderance of 10-year goals and relatively few of the shorter-term variety, this may be an indication that you tend to put things off. Keep working on your list, adding and subtracting goals with various time frames until you've created a more or less even distribution. Now comes the really challenging and interesting part. So far, you've just been adding things to the list, but now it's time to start making some selections. Now you're going to start asking yourself what's really important compared to what might just be fun. Choose 4 goals from each of the 4 time frames: 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year. You now have 16 separate goals. So far, you've only referred to them in shorthand fashion, but now you're going to start seeing them very clearly in your mind's eye. You're going to see each goal just as if it were realized this very minute, and you're going to write down a detailed description of exactly what you see. Do you intend to open a handmade furniture store in 3 years? What will the store look like from the street? Will there be gold leaf lettering on the windows? Or will there be a sign hanging over the door instead? How many square feet will the store contain? Will there be a showroom area for the furniture in front and a workspace in back? Or will the furniture be built at a different location? Do you intend to have any employees? Or will you run the business entirely by yourself? Think of all the questions that need to be answered in order to see your goal with absolute clarity, and then write the information down. That written record will become one of your most important personal possessions. But that's not all. Any goal is a powerful motivator only if there's a powerful reason behind it. Why do you want to achieve your goals? Why do you want to own a handmade furniture store, or a private airplane, or a newspaper in a small town in Vermont? Why do you want to compete in a triathlon, or visit the Australian outback, or be the first woman in your family to earn a PhD? Write down your reasons for wanting each goal in the same degree of detail that you use to write your descriptions. If you can't find a clear and convincing reason for each of your 16 goals, do some serious reevaluating. You may have more whims or pipe dreams than real goals, and now is the right time to make that discovery. Keep working on your list until you have 16 clearly envisioned, strongly motivating long-term goals. At regular intervals, review what you've written and keep careful track of your progress toward these objectives. Above all, persevere. Goal setting is a very important first step, but goal achievement is a continuous, lifelong process. That's what makes it so challenging. That's also why it's so extremely rewarding to finally attain your long-term goals. Becoming a millionaire. Let me give you a scenario for setting your goals. When I started making my first list, Mr. Schoaf said, "Mr. Rohn, it looks like we're going to be together for a while. I've got a suggestion for you. You are a 25-year-old American male. Sure, you've made some mistakes, but now you're on the road to better things. You've got the motivation to make a difference. This is America. The possibilities are endless. Why don't you set a goal of becoming a millionaire? Millionaire. It's got a nice ring to it." I was about to explain why becoming a millionaire is a worthy goal, I thought. The man doesn't need to teach me why. It would be great to have $1 million. But he had a reason that was infinitely more compelling than mine. It is one of the greatest lessons I have ever learned, and I'm about to share it with you. Here's what Mr. Schoaf said. Set a goal of becoming a millionaire for what it will make of you to achieve it. Set a goal that will make you reach for the stars. What a great reason for setting goals. And here's why. The greatest value in life is not what you obtain. The greatest value in life is what you become along the way. The major question to ask on the job is not, what am I getting here? A much more powerful question is, what am I becoming here? It's not what you get that makes you valuable. It's what you become along the way that makes you valuable. Then Mr. Schoaf explained, when you finally have become a millionaire, what's important is not the money. You can just give the money away. I did better than that. I lost it all. I was rich by the age of 31, a millionaire, and I was broke by the age of 33. I didn't have to give it all away because I lost it all. I made many foolish mistakes. You see, as a farm boy from Idaho, that early money drove me bonkers. If I saw something I liked, I would ask, how many colors does it come in? I'll buy them all. I just went crazy. What an experience that was. I learned that Mr. Schoaf was right. When I found myself broke at age 33, I discovered for myself that the money did not mean that much. It represented only a fraction of all my assets. And when I began concentrating on these other assets, my skills, my discipline, my family, the money came back into my life. Let me give you the key phrase of setting goals. Set the kind of goals that will make you a better person when you achieve them, or when you are in the process of achieving them. Always ask yourself, what will this goal make of me? If I set this goal and go forward, how will this change me in the process? What a wonderful new concept in the setting of goals. 2 rules for goal setting. I have 2 important rules for setting goals. By following these rules, you will achieve a great deal and become more than you ever could have imagined. Here's the first rule. Don't set your goals too low. In leadership training, we teach a similar guideline. Don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Go where the expectations are high. Go where the demands are high. Go where the pressure is to perform, to grow, to change, to read, to study, to develop new skills. I belong to a small group of people that conducts business around the world. You would not believe what we expect of each other in terms of excellence. Why? So that we can each grow. So that we can contribute something unprecedented to the benefit of the group. It's called living at the summit. Go where the demands are high. Go where the expectations are so strong that they motivate you, push you, urgently insist that you not remain in the same place. That way you will grow and change. So don't set your goals too low. What about the guy who says, well, I don't need much? He is guaranteed not to become much. Here's rule number 2 for goal setting. Don't compromise. Don't sell out. There were some things back in the early years for which I paid too big a price. If I had known how much it was going to cost me, I never would have paid that price, but I didn't know it at the time. So don't sell out, and as the old saying goes, count the costs. Remember in that ancient story, Judas got the money. That sounds like a success story, and it is true that 30 pieces of silver in those days was a sizable fortune. But having a name that is synonymous with traitor is not what I would call a success story. Interestingly enough, when Judas got the money after becoming a traitor, he was unhappy. He wasn't unhappy with the money, he was unhappy with himself. You see, the greatest source of unhappiness doesn't come from the outside world. The greatest source of unhappiness comes from within. To alleviate his unhappiness, Judas tried to return the money, but no one would take it back. so he decided to just throw the money away. Why would he throw his fortune away? Because he was so unhappy with himself. Of course, that wasn't the end of the scenario. Throwing his fortune away did not change what Judas had become, a traitor. In total frustration, he hung himself. Why did Judas have such a tragic end? Because he was so unhappy with himself. He sold out. He paid too big a price. Don't compromise your values. Don't compromise your virtue. Don't compromise your philosophy. There are two words from ancient scripture you need to keep in mind. The first is beware. This is the negative word. Be aware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Don't sell out. Indeed, if Judas were to advise us today, he would tell us to beware. The second word, behold, is the positive one. Behold the possibilities and the opportunity. Behold the drama. Behold the awesomeness. Behold the uniqueness. Behold the majesty. What a positive word, behold. Set the kind of goals that will transform your life, that will make you far better than you are, far stronger than you currently are, and you will behold. Putting it down on paper. I've been encouraging you to set lofty, noble goals, but it's important to have a little fun in the process too. On my first list of goals, I had a little revenge. My target was a man from budget finance who used to harass me. I got 2 or 3 payments behind, and one guy called incessantly saying, "We're going to come get your car and tow it up and down the street in front of your neighbors." Whoa, he really tried to put me down. When I got my straightened out, one of the first priorities on my list was budget finance. And when I finally had enough money for my back payments, I needed a little drama. I got the money in small bills and put it in a big briefcase. I walked into the budget finance office in Los Angeles and found the guy who harassed me so much. I went up to his desk and stood right in front of him. He said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I didn't say a word. I just opened up the briefcase and dumped a pile of money all over his desk, saying, "Count it. It's all there. I'll never be back." Then I turned around, walked out, and slammed the door. That might not be noble, but you've got to try it at least one time. Pay off your debts with a little drama. I got to check them off my list. What you have on your list is up to you. I keep my original list in my journal, so I can go back 5 years and see where my priorities were. Often I'm a little embarrassed when I go back to look at what I wrote and see what I thought was so important. Things like how my philosophy has changed from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. I compare my old list with my new list. But what's most important is what's valuable to me now. What I want my life to be now, where I want to go, and what I want to do now. Keep all of your lists of goals because they illustrate your ability to grow. They show your ability to change, and they show how your philosophy grows and expands. That's valuable information. The self-knowledge acid test. One thing you may not be thinking about now is preparing for the day you reach your goals. Being ready, being worthy, becoming the person you need to be in pursuit of what you want. What good is an opportunity if you're not prepared to take advantage of it? It's no good. It won't do a thing for you. Be prepared. To help you with this preparation, here's what's called the self-knowledge acid test. Quickly, without thinking too much about it, list your 3 most important long-term work-related goals. Is there a client you've been trying to sign for several months? Is there a major sale you've been trying to make? Are you hoping for a promotion or a partnership in the firm? These are objectives that you want to achieve that will take a while to get. Write them down. Again, without thinking too much about it. Quickly list your 3 most important personal and spiritual goals. These are the things that will make a difference in your personal life. Do you want to go to church more often than just on holidays, grasping all you can from the Sunday sermon? Do you want to spend more quality time with your kids? Do you want to turn the TV off during the dinner hour and actually talk about the important things in life with your family? Do you want to make more dates with your spouse? Do you want to plan a much-needed family vacation? What do you want? What are your most important health-related goals? Do you want to make a conscious effort to exercise more, to eat better, to lose some weight, to get in shape? What are the 3 most important personal and spiritual goals that you have? Write them down. It doesn't matter what they are, just make a note of them. Take some time to really visualize what the achievement of these goals would mean to you. What does your future hold for you if you land that big client? What does your future look like if you get that promotion? If you spend more time with your family? If you plan more outings with your spouse? Really spend some time on this. It's important. What does it all look like? Ask yourself, is this really my goal? Is this what I truly want? Is it a positive goal? Is it important enough to me to become what it takes to reach this goal? Is it worth it? If your 3 goals on the career side and 3 goals on the personal side don't stand up to this scrutiny, you need to take some time to carefully redefine a few things. Redefine your list. Figure out the origin of these goals, what actually is important to you, and how hard you'll really work to achieve them. When your goals are truly important and meaningful to you, you will not only eventually achieve them, you will also deserve all of the rewards that you reap in the process of doing so. Progress through self-preparation. Self-preparation is a discipline that has 2 benefits. The first is that it moves you towards your goal. You've already got it in your mind. You know where you want to go. You're getting ready for it. You're doing all the things you're supposed to do. By getting ready to achieve your goals, you're moving closer to them. The second major benefit to self-preparation is that it refuels your mission. The things that you are doing today are getting you ready for tomorrow. It's exciting. You know that you're getting closer every day. Your ambition must be kept alive. It must continue to move forward, otherwise you're just daydreaming. You must keep active and keep moving forward so your ambition can fuel you and motivate you to where you want to be. This method of self-preparation involves 3 steps. Step 1, carefully consider where the next opportunity for reaching your goal will originate. Where will it come from? Will it come from networking with your colleagues? Will it come from reading the last book that you bought? The book that's still sitting on your shelf waiting to give you some answers? Carefully consider the next opportunity that will push you forward toward your goal. If you don't know where the next opportunity will originate, here's what you have to do. For each of your major goals, take out a separate piece of paper. Write down your goal at the top and start listing all reasonable resources. Write down every possible place where you could find the opportunity to achieve this goal. Then classify each resource. Ask yourself, is this resource a sure thing? A good bet? Or is it unlikely? A long shot? Ask yourself these questions and classify all of the resources you have written down. That's the first step. The second step in this method of self-preparation is to make sure you know what you need to do to be prepared for your opportunities. Take your sure things first. Figure out what you need to do to be prepared when they happen. Break down your preparation into concrete steps. Make sure that you know exactly what you have to do to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes your way. Let's say that one of the top priorities on your career list of goals is to get a particular new client. Let's take it one step further and say that on your resource list for this goal, you'd like to have a lunch meeting with a friend who just happens to be the mentor of the client you're going after. Is this friend of yours a sure bet on your resource list? Suppose he is. You know this guy is a tremendous consulting source for the client you want, and the client you want really listens to the opinions and advice of your friend. So you're getting ready to have lunch with your friend. What do? You've got to make sure that you're well informed about all the information and industry statistics that will impress your friend. You want to make him realize that he knows someone who could benefit from your knowledge, vitality, spirit, and experience. Impress him so much that he goes back to his friend, the client you're after, and tells this prospective client of yours that he needs to do business with you. In order to make this particular scenario a reality, go through your entire list of goals and resources and classify them. Break each resource into concrete steps of preparation. Start by working on the sure bets first, and then move down the line. The long shots will come through every so often, but start with the resources that will serve you best now. Get ready for the opportunities before they come your way. Step 3 in the self-preparation method is to do all you can to make each opportunity more likely to happen. After you've determined what you have to do to get ready, see what you can do to expedite the process. What can you do to increase the likelihood of this opportunity taking place? Go over your notes again and again. Continually use these 3 methods as you assess where you are now and where you need to go next to keep moving toward the achievements that are most important to you. By the way, this method of self-preparation works wherever you are in your journey. Whether you're close to your goals or you're just starting your journey, this method works. Have a base of knowledge to draw from. Build a reservoir of thoughts, ideas, philosophies, and experiences that are your own. Get ready to grow and change, and be prepared for a life worth living. Tracking your progress. If you want to drive from your home to a store on the other side of town, you'll need an automobile with gas in the tank and the keys to start the car. But you'll also need to know how to drive. You'll need judgment based on life experiences to tell you when to step on the brakes if a traffic light changes to red. You'll need a desire to reach your destination so you don't keep stopping for coffee and a piece of pie every 10 minutes. You'll need to know how much time to allot for the trip so you can get home in time for whatever else you have to do. And you'll need enough maturity to call and to say you're going to be late if you get stuck in a traffic jam. You can't measure these requirements with a yardstick, but they're as important to reaching your destination as the car, the gas, or the keys to start the engine. Let's continue this metaphor for another moment or two. There are all sorts of ways to keep track of the condition of a motor vehicle. You can look at the tires to see whether they've worn out their tread. You can look at the odometer to see how long it's been since you changed the oil. And you can turn on a switch and then walk around the car to see if the headlights and taillights are working properly. These are objective indicators of the condition of your car. Similarly, there are ways of objectively evaluating your achievements. Most people don't take advantage of them as often as they should, but they're available nonetheless. For example, you can put together a financial statement in order to determine your net worth. You can hire an appraiser to learn the market value of your house. You can compare where you were 10 years ago to where you are now to determine the level of progress you've made in your life. Achievement depends on effective goal setting and monitoring in the same way that a successful drive to the grocery store depends on knowing when to apply the brakes and when to step on the gas. But how can you track your progress and determine if you will be able to get where you want to go? In other words, are there ways of discovering whether you are doing what you need to do without having an accident? I believe there are ways of evaluating your goals, just as there are ways of measuring depth of tread on a tire or the amount of gas in the tank of an automobile. To utilize these techniques, all you need is a commitment to be truly honest with yourself. At first, this kind of brutal honesty may be painful, but you must realize that true achievement is unlikely unless you pay the necessary price. Just as the gas gauge of a car indicates full and empty with several demarcations in between, you can learn whether you have enough fuel to get to your life's destinations. But while a car has only one gas gauge, your progress can be evaluated by 4 different imaginary gauges. Here's the first one. On the right-hand side of the gauge, corresponding to the letter F for full, I want you to imagine a letter R, which stands for refusal. And on the left side of the gauge, I want you to imagine a letter C, which stands for complacency. If your goals are good and strong, there are certain things that you simply refuse to accept in yourself or in other people. In your work, you refuse to accept anything less than your best effort. That doesn't mean that things will always work out exactly as you had hoped and intended, but that's not the point. Always be variables you can't control, but regardless, your level of effort should always be the maximum possible. With your family, your commitment should be just as strong. You should simply refuse to compromise in any area where your family's needs and welfare are concerned. And with yourself, you should similarly refuse to accept pettiness, dishonesty, or unethical behavior in any form. On the left-hand side of the first character evaluation gauge is the letter C, which stands for complacency. But it could also be the letters LIS, standing for let it slide, or even WTDA, for what's the difference anyway? Ask yourself where you stand on that scale. Do you have enough character to accept only your best effort? If not, it's time to make a pit stop right now. The second character rating gauge has the letter D on the right, and on the left is the letter M. The D stands for decision, and the M stands for maybe. Ask yourself, are you a person who comes to a fork in the road and turns either right or left? Or do you stop the car, scratch your chin and say, well, maybe I'll go this way, and then maybe I'll go that way, and in the end you go nowhere? Think about the big goals you have set in your life. It could be that you want to leave your job and start a business of your own. It could be that you want to get married. In any case, are you the kind of person who makes the necessary decisions and takes the necessary action to achieve those goals? Or are you someone who says, well, maybe this just isn't meant to be? Now imagine a gauge with a big W on one side and an A on the other. The W should be in bright red or orange, while the A should probably be a dingy green or pale yellow. That's because the W stands for want, as in, I want it now, or I want it real bad, or I want it so much I'll do whatever it takes to get it. The W means you'll go to law school for 5 years at night while working full-time during the day because you want to be a lawyer. The W means you'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to work on your novel because you want to be a writer. It means you'll travel from one end of the country to the other many times to find a doctor who can make your child well. I know people who have done all those things because they really wanted something, and eventually they got it. The A stands for apathy. That's where you don't really care what happens. And if you don't really care what happens, it's just as well, because the outcome will not be positive. Now we come to the last of our imaginary character gauges. On the right-hand side is the letter P, and that stands for promise. And on the left-hand side is the letter F, and that stands for fear. If you are a person of strong character, you will promise yourself that you will achieve your goals, or what? It doesn't matter, because you never consider that possibility. You have made a promise, and you are going to keep it. When you set out to drive to the grocery store, you don't stop at the doorway and think, what will I do if I don't make it? You have no time for fear. You simply intend to go to the grocery store. You know to get there, and you will get there. It's simply guaranteed. Visual chain thinking. Wouldn't you prefer a life of productivity rather than a life of endless tasks with little accomplishment? Of course. When you carefully set your goals and keep them at the forefront of your mind, you can work smarter instead of working longer. You'll know that a life worth living comes from a life of balance. In order to maintain that balance, here's a key technique that you can use in your life to help keep you on the right track. This technique is called visual chain thinking. Ambitious people know that each step toward their goals is not a singular step. Each discipline is not a singular discipline. Each project is not a singular project. Each sale is not a singular sale. They see everything they do and every discipline they adhere to as a link in the chain of events and actions that will lead them to their final destination. Every action and every discipline achieved today is a link in the chain. Every action and every discipline achieved tomorrow is a link. And every action and every discipline achieved in the more distant future is also a link. Your direction, activities, and disciplines all make up crucial links in your chain of success. When you can see that one thing affects everything else, when you come to realize that every discipline affects every discipline, when you look at your future as a chain that needs strong links all along the way, then you'll build a reservoir of strength and courage that will serve you well during the downtimes. When you can see that every link in the chain will eventually lead you to the things you want most out of life and to the person you want to become, then you won't grow discouraged, fearful, or impatient with today. When you can see where you're going through visual chain thinking, even on the toughest days, you'll keep moving toward your goals because you know where you're going. Building your visual chain of thought begins when you have well-defined plans for your career, your family activities, your investments, and your health. Your plans and goals are your visual chain. You know where you're going before you get there. It's ironic how we all understand the importance of mapping out a strategy for a football game or a basketball game. Not one professional team in the world begins a game without a game plan. But few of us take the time to map out such a strategy for our lives. But it's important to make this sort of plan. Here's the first rule for your game plan of life. Don't begin the activities of your day until you know exactly what you plan to accomplish. Don't start your day until you have it planned, and do this every day. I know all this writing takes time and a disciplined effort. Remember, however, that reaching your goals is the fruitful result of discipline, not merely hope. Once you've mastered the art of planning your day, you're ready for the next level. Don't begin the activities of your week until you know exactly what you plan to accomplish. Don't start your week until you have it planned. Just imagine what life would be like if you took time out every Sunday to plan your week. Come Friday, you wouldn't be saying, "Boy, did this week fly by. Where did it go? What did I do?" No. If you plan your week before you start it, you'll know exactly what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, you need to work on. If you learn to plan your days as part of your overall game plan for the week, the parts will fit much better. Your days will be better. You will be more effective. You'll be working smarter, not harder. And when you've learned to plan your week, guess what? You've got to plan your month. Don't start your month until you've mapped out your game plan. By developing and following your game plan, your days, weeks, and months all become part of a larger plan, a bigger design. You develop a long-term view of your life, a visual chain. You'll start gaining a greater perspective of it all because you are planning. If visually seeing your future is new to you, if you've never developed a game plan before, let me offer a few tips. There are two things you need to understand before you create a game plan. Number one, a game plan, a visual chain of your future, is like a spreadsheet. Instead of listing numbers, you list activities. It's like a to-do list. And number two, the technique of developing a game plan can be used for a single day, a single project, or a variety of projects that are happening simultaneously. Here's how you do it. First of all, you need to buy a pad of graph paper. Game plans work best on graph paper. Take a sheet of graph paper and make vertical columns corresponding to the number of days this plan is to cover. Then on the left-hand side of the paper, write the heading Activities. Under this heading, list all the activities to be accomplished within your time frame. Let's say, for example, that you've got 1 week to finalize a marketing plan. It's an overwhelming amount of work to complete, but it's got to be done. So break it down piece by piece. The best way to start is by listing all of the individual components on the left-hand side of the page. Some of these things will need to be completed before others can be started. You need to obtain your market research results before you can determine your target market. You need to know your target market before you can develop your marketing strategy. You need to have your marketing strategy before you can create a budget for collateral materials, and so on. When you break down the project piece by piece and deadline by deadline, you can be more effective in putting together the appropriate parts of the puzzle and in doing your own work while delegating the rest. The final result of developing your game plan is a clear visual presentation of the tasks before you. This method is used quite often in business to coordinate and develop projects of any length. It's the only way to see the entire project on paper and manage its progress. Admittedly, game plans are frustrating to create. They're frustrating because it's difficult to completely prioritize your life and all your projects. You may go through several sheets of graph paper before you produce the perfect format. But as soon as you develop your first one, you'll see the value in this discipline. Keep your game plan in plain sight. Put it up in your office where you can easily look at it. Have a copy of it at home and tape it to the refrigerator. Keep a copy in your journal for quick reference. Your game plan will serve as a constant reminder of all you need to do to get to where you want to go. If you're doing all you're scheduled to do, game plans are very rewarding. Day by day, week by week, month by month, you'll see the magic of your dreams and plans turning into reality. You will have an incredible feeling of being in charge of your life, your surroundings, and your future. It's like creating a work of art on the biggest canvas imaginable. It's creative. It's beautiful. This is powerful stuff. To dream a dream, plan for the dream, and then watch your dream turn into reality. Here's what's really powerful about creating game plans. You can see your future right before your eyes. So on those days when your energy isn't up to par, your enthusiasm is a little low, your ambition isn't pushing you forward, and your attitude isn't on the positive side, use your game plan to see how far you've come. Take the time to visualize exactly where you're headed. On those days, it's your discipline and visual chain of the future that will push you ahead. People and circumstances may try to set you back, but your visual chain will propel you toward your goals. Reasons to persevere. The Irish poet William Butler Yeats once wrote a poem describing some of the unfortunate characteristics of the modern world. One of the things Yeats noticed was that malevolent people seem to have the most energy, while good people become discouraged and doubtful of their own abilities. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are filled with a passionate intensity. Those are the words Yeats used. It's true that we can look around and see all sorts of things happening that we might wish were not happening, and people doing things that we might not admire. When we see that taking place, it's easy to start thinking, what's the use? What hope do I really have? Why don't I give up on all the things I've been trying to accomplish and just start taking it easy? Even goal-directed people feel that way sometimes. All of us have moments like that. That's when perseverance gets really, really tough. What's the answer? Well, it begins with this question. Who are you working for besides yourself? Who is depending on you? Who will benefit if you persevere and succeed? Who will suffer if you give up and stop trying? Who can you reach out to and help once you've achieved your goals? For many people, the answers to these questions will appear quite readily. If you have a family, your spouse and your children are depending on you. Perhaps even your parents are depending on you now if they're elderly and require some care. But even if you're a single person or just starting out in your career, you can think of reasons to persevere and succeed that go beyond your personal needs. Maybe share some of your financial success with the schools that educated you, with the religious institutions that gave you spiritual guidance, or with a hospital that helped to heal you on some occasion. This sharing doesn't have to be limited to money either. If your work has given you certain share your time and your efforts, you can and you should. But even this isn't putting it strongly enough. It isn't just that you'll do better if you feel you're working for others in addition to yourself. You absolutely must find reasons outside of yourself to persevere if you want to keep going when the going gets tough. Hemingway wrote, "A man alone hasn't got a chance." This means that you need people to help you in life. It also means that you need people to help. You need people who can become the real reasons for perseverance beyond material possessions or your financial success. What's in it for me can take you only so far. What's in it for somebody besides me can take you as far as you need to go. In the last days of World War II, the American cruiser Indianapolis was sunk by an enemy submarine. This was one of the most tragic incidents of the war for the American forces, and hundreds of men lost their lives. Many who made it through the initial attack had to spend days and nights in the water before rescuers arrived. The experience of trying to stay alive in the water was so overwhelming that many people simply gave up. In fact, the survivors later reported that virtually everyone wanted to give up at one time or another. But whenever someone wanted to quit trying, the others would talk to that person about the people back home who needed him and who were depending on him to survive. And if there was no one who was depending on him right then, they would talk about people in the future who would someday be needing him. People he hadn't yet met, people who hadn't even been born. They conjured up all sorts of reasons above and beyond simply surviving. This motivation beyond merely thinking of the self was often the only motivation that made these men persevere. And what was true for those men in wartime is also true in all of our lives, no matter what we're trying to accomplish. We need to look outward for reasons to persevere. Is there a better reason to go on than helping others on the road to your own success? I don't think so. Chapter 4. The Power of Ideas. The best money spent is the money spent to cultivate the genius of your own mind and spirit. Hear or read something challenging, something instructional, at least 30 minutes a day, every day. You can get along without some meals, but you can't get along without some ideas, examples, and inspiration. Most people are just trying to get through the day. I want you to learn how to get from the day. Every day is a piece of the mosaic of your life. You need to capture the experience, the knowledge, the sights, the sounds, the panorama, the color, and the emotion, so they will serve you for the future. Searching for information. If you want your life to change, here's the source of it all. Ideas plus inspiration. The good news is, ideas are not that far away. I've got an excellent phrase for you to consider, one that will serve you well for the rest of your life. Everything you need is within reach. The ideas you need for life change or business change are within listening reach. They are within reading reach. In fact, there's probably a library far from you. The problem is, most people pass by libraries. Very few walk in. Andrew Carnegie set up all these libraries across the country, thinking everybody would stop in. But no, almost everybody drives right on by. Do you know how many people own a library card in the United States? 3%. And guess how much they cost? Nothing. The ideas are within reach. But here's the key question. Who is going to reach? There's a simple biblical phrase that says, if you seek, you will find. But it's very important that finding is reserved for the seekers. We don't find what we need, we find what we search for. If you will search, if you'll try, if you'll go, if you'll listen, ideas are within reach. And ideas are life-changing. There's nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come. A business idea, a social idea, an investment idea, a good health idea. All you need is a specific idea to make an impact on your life. Ideas can help you gather treasure, gather equity, and gather wealth. 10 years from now, you can be right where you are now, or you can be in a new place. The difference between now and then could be and equity. In 10 years, you can enjoy an incredible life if right here and now you make a small change you on the journey. The key is to start right now, gathering the ideas and making the changes that will take you further along this new road. Finding the right combination. Ideas can change your life, and sometimes all you need is just one more good idea in a series of good ideas. It's like dialing the numbers of a combination lock. After you've dialed 5 or 6 numbers, the lock may not come open, but you probably don't need 5 or 6 more numbers. Maybe you need just one more number, one more idea. Maybe a seminar or a sermon can provide it. The lyrics from a song could do it. The dialogue from a movie could do it. Conversation with a friend might do it. If you keep your eyes and ears open, you'll find that one last idea you need. Once you find that idea, the lock comes open and there's the door for you to walk through. Just one more idea, no matter where you get it, may be all you need to open that door of opportunity. If, however, the lock still doesn't open, you may be lacking in inspiration. Who knows why some people are inspired and some are not? Some people find a great idea and turn it down. Some people say that it costs too much. Some people say that it's going to take too much time. Some people are too busy. There are a lot of different reasons why some people are inspired to take advantage of a good idea while others pass it up. I call it mysteries of the mind, and I just leave it at that. There are some things I don't try to figure out. Some people buy and some don't. Some go for it and some don't. Some change and some don't. And if you've been around for a while, you can usually spot those who don't take advantage of a good idea. A man asks me, "How come all this stuff goes wrong for me?" I say, "I don't know. Beats me. The most I've been able to figure out is that those kinds of things always happen to people like you." I'll bet he's one of the ones who don't take advantage of good ideas. If he continues on that path, he'll probably never find the right combination. That honor will always fall on the ones who do, like you. A constant search for knowledge. The consistent, disciplined, purposeful, constant search for knowledge. It's where the life-changing ideas are. Pursue knowledge with high expectations. Spend the money, time, and effort. They are all investments, but the payoff is so great it's hard to compare the cost to the reward. First is the money. I have a great suggestion. Set up an educational fund for the programs, the books, the lectures, the seminars, and the videos you need for a constant flow of ideas and inspiration. Take a portion of your income each month and set it aside to invest in the search for knowledge. Remember, the best money spent is the money spent to cultivate the genius of your own mind and spirit. Make sure you don't spend more for frivolous comforts and conveniences than you do for education. The money is a small price. The promise is unlimited potential. The next investment is time, which is an extremely valuable expenditure. It's one thing to ask someone for their money, but to ask them for their time is a much more significant request. Knowledge takes time, precious time. The time you spend is irreplaceable. You can get more money, but you can't get more time. However, life has a unique way of rewarding high investment with high return. The major investment of time you're making now could be that small fine-tuning you need for major accomplishment. Last is the investment of effort. There is a great deal of difference between casual learning and serious learning. Learning that opens up the whole mental and spiritual process is truly an investment in effort. And this effort is the investment that opens the floodgates of ideas that can work their magic for you in the marketplace. So I don't hesitate to ask you to spend, in a deliberate and consistent fashion, the money, time, and effort required to reach your goals. These are the investments that turn on the lights, sharpen the focus, and start turning your wishes of wealth and happiness into reality. Accessing the information you need. Let me share with you two of the best sources of information available. First, there are your own experiences. Become a good student of your own life. It's the information you are most familiar with and feel the strongest about, so make your own life one of your most important studies. In studying your own life, be sure to study the negative as well as the positive, your failures as well as your successes. Our so-called failures serve us well when they teach us valuable information. They're frequently better teachers than our successes. One of the ways we learn how to do something right is simply by doing it wrong. Doing it wrong is a great school for learning, but I would suggest that you not take too long doing this. If you've done something wrong for 10 years, I wouldn't suggest taking another 10. But what a close at hand and excellent way to learn from your own experiences. When I met Mr. Schoaf, I had been working for 6 years. I started when I was 19, and when I met him, I was 25. He said to me, "Mr. Rohn, you have been working now for 6 years. How are you doing?" I said, "Not very well." He said, "Then I suggest you do not do that anymore. 6 years is long enough to operate with the wrong plan." Next, he asked me, "How much money have you saved in the last 6 years?" I said, "Not any." He said, "Who sold you on that plan 6 years ago?" What a fantastic question. Where did I get my current plan that wasn't working well? Everyone has bought someone's plan. The question is, whose? Whose plan have you bought? Those initial confrontations may be a little painful at first, especially if you have made as many errors as I have. But think of the progress you can make when you finally confront those errors by becoming a better student of your own life. The second way to learn is from other people's experiences. Done things right or wrong. You can learn from the negative as well as the positive. The Bible is such a great book because it is a collection of human stories representing both sides of the ledger. Some human stories are called examples. Do what these people did. Other human stories are called warnings. Don't do what these people did. What a wealth of information, knowing what to do and what not to do. If your story ever gets in somebody's book, make sure they use it as an example, not a warning. There are 3 ways to learn from other people. The first is to listen to the programs and read the books by and about people who have accomplished great things. All the successful people around the world I know and work with are good readers. They just read, read, read. They are driven to read because they just have to know. It is one of the things they all have in common. Here is an excellent phrase. All leaders are readers. Successful people also listen to audio programs, especially while they're in the car or during other times when they can't read. Programs can help all of us easily pick up new ideas and skills. Did you know there are programs and books on how to be stronger, more decisive, a better speaker, a more effective leader, have a better effect on other people, become more loving, develop a more winning personality, get rich, develop persuasive influence, become sophisticated, and people don't utilize these resources? How would you explain that? Did you know that hundreds of successful people have written their stories in books and told the world how they became successful, and most people don't want to read or listen to them? How would you explain that? They're busy, I guess. They say, if you worked where I work, you'd know that by the time I struggle home, it's late. I've got to have a bite to eat, watch a little TV, and go to bed. I can't stay up half the night and read. Imagine someone who is behind on his bills. He's a good worker and very sincere. Unfortunately, you can be sincere and work hard all your life and wind up broke, confused, and embarrassed. You've got to be better than a good worker. You've got to be a good reader and a good listener. You don't have to read or listen to educational programs half the night, although if you're broke, it's a good place to start. All you need are just 30 minutes a day. That's all. Stretch it to an hour if you can, but set aside at least 30 minutes. Hear or read something challenging, something instructional at least 30 minutes a day, every day. Miss a meal, but not your 30 minutes. You can get along without some meals, but you can't get along without some ideas, examples, and inspiration. There's a biblical phrase that says, "Man cannot live on bread alone." The most important thing aside from bread is words. Words nourish the mind. Words nourish the soul. Humans have to have food and words to be healthy and prosperous. Make sure you have a good diet of words every day. And remember that to properly feed the mind, you must maintain good balance. Don't just read or listen to the easy material. You can't live on mental candy. With good books and programs, you can tap into the treasure of ideas. And if somebody has a good excuse for not tapping into the treasure of ideas for at least 30 minutes every day, I'd like to hear it. You wouldn't believe some excuses I've heard. I say, "John, I've got this gold mine. I've got so much gold, I don't know what to do with it all. Come on over and dig." John says, "I don't have a shovel." "Well, John, let's get you one." He says, "Don't you know what they want for shovels these days?" John has the wrong perspective. Don't make the same mistake. Invest the money. Get the programs and books. The best money you can spend is money invested in your self-education. Don't shortchange yourself when it comes to investing in your own better future. Building your library. We all need a good library. Mr. Schoaf started on mine. Here's one of the books he recommended, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Schoaf asked me, "Doesn't that title intrigue you?" Think and Grow Rich. Who wouldn't need that book? I found it in a used bookstore and paid less than 50 cents for it. And I've still got it. It's one of my most valued treasures. You can start this process of developing a library like I did. Here's a mindset to guide you as you begin. Your library needs to show that you're a serious student of life, health, spirituality, culture, uniqueness, sophistication, economics, prosperity, productivity, sales, management skills, and values of all kinds. Let your library show you're a serious student. Your library will become your mental food, your food for thought. It is so important to nourish the mind, not just the body. You've got to be educated. A good book to start with is How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. Adler was the chief editor of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which is also a good set of books to have in your library. In How to Read a Book, Adler gives you some good suggestions on how to not just read a book, but actually get the most information out of it. He also provides a list of the best books ever written, and I've used it as a centerpiece for my library. I'm just telling you what worked for me. If it suits you, fine. If it doesn't suit you, keep looking until you find something that does suit you. Just be sure to keep your library well balanced. Let me give you some examples. Number 1, we've all got to have a sense of history. We need to know about American history, international history, family history, and political history. This sort of knowledge will illustrate for you that the state of one's life rarely changes for the better of its own accord. Once you realize that, the next logical step is to realize that you have to do the changing. History helps us to understand what there is to work with: seed, soil, sunshine, rain. It also tells us what human beings have done with those resources in the past to change their lot in life. You'll find that many of them transformed from non-productive citizens to productive ones. That's what history is for, to learn the lessons of our ancestors. Be a good student of history. The next crucial topic is philosophy. You might find it a little bit difficult to comprehend some aspects of philosophy, but you can't just read and study the easy stuff. Try to tackle the more difficult to comprehend stuff. That's how you grow as a person. Next, novels. Many times an intriguing story is interwoven with the philosophy that the author is trying to get across. Ayn Rand was probably than anybody else. Atlas Shrugged was a towering novel. It kept us intrigued as Rand was feeding us her philosophy. And you don't need to agree with an author's perspective to benefit from a novel. Here's a little personal advice. Skip the trash. Sometimes you can find something valuable in a trashy novel, but I wouldn't take the time to read something trashy just to find it. You can find a crust of bread in the garbage bin, but I wouldn't dig through it. There's simply not enough time to read the truly brilliant stuff. Next are biographies and autobiographies. You can read the dramatic stories of both good people and terrible people. You need to understand the balance between good and evil. Get a book on Gandhi and a book on Hitler. One will illustrate the heights of good a human being can accomplish, and the other will illustrate how low and despicable a human being can become. You need to comprehend both sides of the coin. Next, accounting. You've got to have at least a primary understanding of accounting. Kids have got to start learning the difference between a debit and a credit. And next is law. You don't have to be a lawyer, but you've got to know contracts, what to sign, what not to sign, and how to be safe rather than sorry. All of us need a little law, especially in these complicated times. I learned this the hard way. Some time ago, a company I was affiliated with in Canada wanted to borrow money. They needed $250,000. The bank said, "Yes, we will loan the company the money if Mr. Rohn will sign personally." I wanted to play the hero, and I knew the company could pay it back, so I signed. Sure enough, within less than a year, they had paid the loan back in full. I was indeed seen as the hero. About a year later, this company got in financial trouble. They went back to the bank and borrowed $250,000 again. I said to myself, I hope my phone doesn't ring because I won't sign the note this time. I knew they were in trouble. I knew they were probably going to go bankrupt. My phone never rang. I was off the hook. Sure enough, within less than a year, the company went bankrupt. They couldn't pay, and I get a letter from the bank saying, "Dear Mr. Rohn, since the company cannot perform its obligation and pay this $250,000, and since we have here your personal guarantee, would you please send us your check for $250,000? I thought there must be some mistake. I signed that first note and they paid it all back. I didn't sign the second note. What I didn't know was that I had originally signed a continuing guarantee. So now I know what the word continuing means. I'm asking you to study a little law. Know what to sign. Know how to defend yourself. Don't sign too quickly. Be a student. Don't be a lazy learner. You've got to build a library that shows you're a serious student of personal development in all areas. So begin with a few books. Soon, you'll open up a whole new world of fresh ideas. Absorbing and responding. You encounter a plethora of ideas every day, but most of them probably go by unnoticed. That's why you need to develop the ability to absorb. Like a sponge. Don't miss anything. Don't miss the words. Don't miss the atmosphere. Don't miss the color. Don't miss the scenario. Don't miss what's going on. Most people are just trying to get through the day. Here's what I want you to be committed to doing. Learn to get from the day. Learn from it. Let the day teach you. Attend the University of Life. What a difference that will make in your future. Commit yourself to learning. Commit yourself to absorbing. I've got a personal friend who is gifted in this area. I think he soaks up and remembers virtually everything that has ever happened to him. He can tell you vivid stories from his teenage years, where he was, what he did, what he said, what she said, how they felt, the color of the sky, and what was going on that day. And the reason is because he absorbs everything that happens to him. I'm telling you, it's more exciting to have him go to Acapulco and tell you about it than it is to go yourself. He has an extraordinary gift. Wherever he is, he doesn't miss anything. Here's a good phrase for you to jot down. Wherever you are, be there. Be there to absorb it. Take a picture if you can. Take pictures in your mind. Let your soul and heart take pictures. Get it, capture it, absorb it. And don't be casual in getting it. Casualness leads to casualties. Next, learn to respond. Responding means letting life touch you. Don't let it kill you, but let it touch you. Let sad things make you sad. Let happy things make you happy. Give in to the emotion. Let the feelings strike you. Our emotions need to be as acknowledged as our intellect. It's important to know how to feel. It's important to know how to respond. It's important to let life in, to let it touch you. I'm the greatest guy in the world to take to the movies. I really get into a good movie. I want it to make me laugh, make me cry, scare me to death, teach me something, take me